Welcome and great to have you join us as we go off script with Sam Monk, Senior Leader of Equippers Church. Enjoy today's podcast.
Hey, welcome to episode 9 of Off Script with Sam Monk. We talk about what's worked, what hasn't, and leadership lessons. And Sam, I want to start off today with some feedback that we've received. We've received some overwhelmingly positive feedback.
Oh, that's good news.
Which is good. But some of the feedback is genuinely... seem to be people quite surprised with the fact that you are quite literally today unscripted. Like, you don't have any notes. I have some questions that I'm going to ask you, but you don't actually have any notes. And as long as I've known you, this is the space where I think you function really well, where there's an agenda, but there's also these unscripted moments. And that's really why we called this off script, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, the whole thing of being off script is you have to draw on what's within you. And so often, we can put on a performance or we can read off notes and you don't really get to experience the heart of something. And I found in my leadership journey, some of the best moments have come when it's unscripted, when it's non-agendaed. It's like the meeting that takes place after the meeting.
Right.
You know those ones?
Yeah,
You have the meeting, you go through the agenda, and then after the meeting, you talk about the real issues and what people really think. And it's often in the meeting, people only disclose what they want you to hear rather than actually getting to the heart of what's going on. There's nothing worse when somebody's nodding their head in a meeting, but on the inside they go, no, no, no. Or you're in a meeting and people are just going along with the crowd, what the majority are saying, but in the inside they've got to check. And I think, unscripted is really about drawing that instinctive side of leadership, and that it's drawing from what you've placed within you.
So do you find that when you are running different spaces, and you lead a lot of different spaces at multiple sizes and stages and all that, do you find when you're leading it that you do tend to get that kind of mental assent, that kind of nodding? Because nobody in the middle of a meeting of maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 people are going to go, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
But is it afterwards? Because I notice afterwards, you're always usually the last one to leave the room.
Yeah.
You like people will walk out. They'll go, "Cool, thank you. The meeting is now over," and they'll walk out. But you're usually the last one because there's always conversations that you have outside of that.
Yeah. Well, I want people to be be truthful with where they're at, and so I'm wanting to say, well, how did you think that went? Were you able to express what was on your heart? I think we've got to build cultures where people do have the permission in meetings to give pushback, to disagree. Sometimes it takes a while to build the level of trust that they're not going to be shot down.
Yeah.
They're not going to be discarded if there is a bit of a pushback. So it's how do you form that culture in the formation of a team? But once you've got a team functioning where there's a level of trust, I've found the best ideas come from conflict, come from, debating things, come from where people are able to express what they really think on the inside. Because what we want is not just, as you said, mental assent. We want heart agreement, and heart agreement is what actually pushes things forward.
And by mental assent, I suppose if you're listening, that's the sort of the nodding, isn't it? Oh, yep, that's good. Yep, yep. Yep. But actually, it's often after those spaces that you open things up a little bit more, where people maybe feel a bit more comfortable in a one-on-one setting or whatever it is to actually share some stuff or to be a bit more open or give people a bit more chance to talk, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I think in a relaxed environment, it's like when you go out for a meal, in a relaxed environment, people will just share what's on their heart rather than what's on an agenda. And I think, when it comes to developing people, developing leaders, you've got to first identify where they're at. And sitting down in a formalized meeting doesn't often extract or give you an idea of what's going on in a person's life and where they're at. And so those casual spaces, we've invited a lot of people to come speak church, and I love the ministry from the platform, but some of the biggest benefit I've got is going out afterwards for a meal. And it's there through the process of asking them questions in an informal setting of able to extract gold nuggets that really have helped me in my leadership journey.
So talk about how we plan. I mean, as I say, over the years, when we plan events, we plan like off-site things, there's probably 50% of the time is hanging out. And again, some of the feedback that we get from people who are part of our teams, who maybe new to our staff and that kind of thing, or volunteers that have come along, again, still say to me, "Oh, are we done now?" And there's a sense that we're done with the formal parts of the meeting.
Yeah.
But like, what are we just like hanging out? Like, do we just hang out and then we have food and then we have more food and we hang out more? And talk about that, because that's, again, we hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Is the meeting finished? Well, yeah, that part of it is. But sometimes people can kind of go, cool, I'm done now. I'm going to head off, rather than no. You know, so talk about that dynamic.
Well, in terms of building team chemistry, I think you've got to hang out in the same space. And the danger is our meetings, we schedule them so tightly that we just go through agendaed items. I think in meetings, you've got to create space for non-agendaed items and social interaction. And so many people, I find they'll go, what are we talking about in this meeting? And I'm going like, I don't know. Oh, can I just skip out on that part? And I'm going, no, you're actually missing a vital part, because it's in the non-agendaed stuff. That's where great ideas come. That's where movement happens, in terms of if we're having to make some changes and some shifts. It's in that space, because, in the agendaed stuff, that's the stuff that we've planned. That's the things that we're foreseen. But there's magic moments that happen when you're just sitting down around a barbecue and you're having a conversation, and it's like, you have an epiphany in that moment. And I found, just scheduling non-agendaed spaces, or having a routine where you call a friend without an agenda. So often we make calls to people and we think, I've got to have something to call.
That's so true, though.
Call about.
What are we talking about?
What are we talking about?
Hang out?
I'm just ringing up, see how you're going.
Yeah.
You call up, and next minute you're on the phone for, an hour, because just seeing how somebody's going, that sparked the agenda. And from there, a whole lot of creativity has emerged, and a whole lot of answers have come.
That's a great point, because sometimes you get a bit maligned. You hang out with people and they go, what's Sam going to say? What's this about? Is this a move? Is this a change? As opposed to, we're just hanging out and seeing where the conversation goes, eh?
Yeah, well, my mum's always said, never pack your suitcase too tightly. When you go away, you often, will pack your suitcase and you'll pack more than you need. How often is that the case? You pack more than you need. You never wear half of the stuff in your suitcase.
It's such a pain. It's so much.
And you
wastage.
overpack it. But if you pack your suitcase too tightly, it means when you're away and you go out and you see something you like, you've got no room to actually bring that home. Mm-hmm. And I think in life, sometimes we're packing our suitcases too tightly, that we're not allowing space for the Holy Spirit to move, for the Holy Spirit to come in and bring about an idea in a moment. And part of leadership is in the planning. I believe in the planning, but we've got to plan for spontaneous moments. And then it's the spontaneity is where the life comes from. But spontaneity takes place from a prepared base. You got to have a prepared base, but it's the spontaneous moments that actually we live for. That's where the energy, that's where the excitement comes in. And even in this podcast, we don't know how the session's going to go,
literally,
but we're praying for those spontaneous moments that hopefully we'll be able to crystallize a thought, an idea that will resonate with some people, that will actually release them so that they can, go on the adventure of, not having everything so ordered.
Yeah.
And I believe in strategic plans, but I also believe in responding to moments. And, we want to be an organization that can respond to the moment. If there's a moment, if there's an opportunity, we can respond to that opportunity when it presents itself.
Because that's an interesting tension, eh? Because again, people could be listening and thinking, does that mean that Sam doesn't believe in having a plan or having an agenda, or, as long as I've been a part of Equippers and whatever it is now, 15, 17 years, I think about our Tuesday morning prayer meeting. I've done that for as long as we've been a part of this church.
Yeah.
So we do have routine.
Yeah.
There are things that in the week that are structured and have been structured for decades now.
Yeah.
So routine is still important. So we're not throwing. I think it's important. So we're not throwing that stuff away.
Yeah.
Because that's that prepared base.
Yeah.
But because we have that prepared base, do the spontaneous moments happen more regularly? Are we able to take advantage of them because we have that prepared base? Like, talk about the routine versus the...
Well, I think you've got to be intentional about creating space. It's like, the classic one, we must catch up sometime. And then you see them a month later and go,
have you for dinner. Yeah.
We must have you around for dinner. And then, but if you don't do things on a regular, it could be a year before you get together. It could be a long time. And, relationship is built through hanging out with one another. That's where trust is built. And, again, it's a nice thought being able to respond in the moment, but there's got to be a certain level of trust in a team to actually operate at speed.
So how are you recruiting people that can adjust more quickly, or is it a culture that you've built into people? Like, you're not looking for a certain profile or personality type that can go, yeah, man, we're ready to move. We want to be creative. We want to do things. Because you're going to get a whole range of staff, aren't you? You've got a whole bunch of people that I imagine are quite planned and prepared and methodical, as opposed to another spectrum of people that are just like, we'll do anything. It changes. We love it. Like, how are you purposefully establishing that, creating that culture so that when you move, it's almost like it's a reflex action. We just know we've got to do this now.
Yeah, well, I think I don't want to dismiss the planning and behind. I love the fact that we've got churches all around the world, and even in cultures, there's different strengths. You talk about the Swiss, they need to know details well in advance. But you talk about people from Brazil, South America, is like, yeah, let's just flow. Yeah. And, different cultures have different strengths. And I think we've got to recognize the strengths in each of those cultures, but make sure one doesn't dominate the other. Because yes, we want to be planned. Yes, we're not just making it up as we go along, but yet we want to be able to respond to moments. So, it's always, the question is, we don't serve the structure, or we don't serve the plan. The plan, in the end, the plan has got to serve the vision that we have. And the danger with institutionalism is people often serve the structure rather than recognizing that the structure serves the vision. And I think that's really important to differentiate between those two things. Yes, we do need structure, but, we want to be agile. And I know agile is a big buzzword today around corporate structures, around companies. And it's like, how do we get flexibility in our companies? Because I think a lot of opportunities are missed simply because people don't have that level of flexibility.
So that's just brought to mind. Talk about Shout Conference. So we had an opportunity where I think it was about a 6-week period.
2020?
Was it? Yeah, 2020, yeah.
Yep.
Shout Conference 2020. And we're all sitting there as a team waiting for you to think, is Sam going to make the decision to go ahead with Shout? I think things had just opened up where we were able to do it, but it was about a 6-week window, wasn't it? Talk about that, because that was a pretty agile kind of moment. So you're not just talking about this in theory, but actually this was an opportunity for us to put this into practice, wasn't it? Yeah,
well, we're at the beginning of the lockdown, I think 3 or 4 months in, and we're on lockdown, and a lot of people had already, a lot of other conferences in our nation had made the decision to not do their conference that year in 2020, and people were asking me.
Everybody was asking you.
Yeah, asking me, are we doing Shout?
Yeah.
And I'm going, well, not yet. I'm not sure. Let's just put it off, and let's not make the decision until we need to make the decision. And so then 6 weeks out, I really felt, first of all, I got a word from God. Exodus 14 and 15 talks about Moses, God saying to Moses, tell the people to stop crying out and tell them to get moving. And I really felt the Holy Spirit said to me, tell people to get moving. And so I went to the team and said, we're doing Shout. And they said, we're 6 weeks out. And I go, yeah, we can pull it off.
Sharpen takes a breath.
And to my surprise, everybody goes, yeah, let's do it.
And even you were stunned by it.
And I was a little bit stunned by that response. But to me, that just confirmed that this is a God thing, because you can move at the speed of agreement. And I think that's really important. Danger with leaders is sometimes leaders just go way out ahead that they haven't actually got buy-in from their team. But because we had agreement in that moment, in the middle of a lockdown, we were able to coordinate within 6 weeks a major conference, which we had thousands of people come to. All the logistics around that, the hire of the arena. Our team was able to pull off, and people to this day would say it's one of our better conferences because we were able to respond to the moment. And, the other things that you look back and go, man, we did that. And I think that's really big, when it comes to team dynamics and different things. You just don't want to do what you know you can do.
Yeah.
You want to venture into spaces that there's this unknown side, where there's this perhaps this will work out. Perhaps this will be amazing. And I think within each and every one of us is like, there's this, I'm happy, scared. This could be, this could be huge, or this could be bad. This could be really bad. And, I think that's where, is like, you'll never innovate unless you're prepared to fail. And I think, if you look at the culture of the team, is like, even if we stuff up, hey, we all still mates.
But you were happy with that level of risk, though, aren't you? Because you had to have trust in the team that they could pull it off. Yeah. And the team is looking to you to go, Sam, do you think we can do, like, there's got to be that level of mutual trust, isn't it, in the team? Yeah. You've got to believe you can actually do it. Like, can we actually do that? Don't tell me we can if we can't, but there's got to be a trust in the level of people that you had around you to pull that thing off.
Yeah, there's got to be a confidence in one another.
Yeah.
Yeah, that confidence. And I think that happens from, spending time together.
Yeah.
Is like, you're sitting down and you're not just getting yes, we're doing this because you're the leader and you said we're doing this. No, we're doing this because we in our hearts believe that this is a God thing. We're in our hearts, we agree we should do this. And I think there's nothing worse when you're sitting in a meeting and the leader's going, come on, let's do this. And everybody goes, yeah. But on the inside, they're going, no. Yeah, and I think as a leader also just being honest about, this is a risk. And it could go wrong. But if it goes wrong, hey, this is what's at stake.
But you were able to do that. It's almost like it's not a reflex reaction, like it's not intuition. You're making a decision based on a lot of other decisions that you've made around spontaneous moments that we've had that lead into these big spontaneous moments. And because, as you've said, Shout 2020 was amazing for so many people. So we had so many encounter moments because, you and the team were prepared to go, actually, we can do this within 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's maybe just finish with this thought around reflex. Like, in the heat of the moment, you got 6 weeks on, you knew you could react to that.
Yeah, that's the big thing. When it comes to something like Shout, that's a big decision, and many people would perceive that as a big decision. But there's money in the bank with the team when it comes to a whole lot of little decisions. Yeah. And so you don't just, you don't go from trusting God with $1 million, from trusting Him with nothing. Yeah. You trust Him with $10, and that gives you the confidence to trust Him with $100. And you see the faithfulness in God working in the $100 space before you trust Him with the $1,000 space. Then you trust Him in the $1,000 space, and then you add a zero as you go along. And I think sometimes people go from 0 to $1 million rather than recognizing that a team has got to grow in their capacity to handle risk.
That's a good thought. Yeah, it's a good thought. Mm-hmm. Hey, Sam, that was a fascinating conversation. Thank you for sharing that. That's really good. And again, we always pray this has been really helpful. And again, we want to remind you to continue to subscribe to the podcast. There's many different ways you can do that on YouTube and Spotify and all the various channels. But that's been a great conversation. Episode 9 of Off Script with Sam Monk. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Off Script with Sam Monk. If you found this podcast helpful, make sure you pass it on. We love your feedback, so drop us a line about what topics you'd like to hear about on Off Script with Sam Monk.